events coordinators here at Shelf Life Books. Thanks so much for coming out. I know WordFest is happening right now, so there's competition for your time. Really appreciate you coming out and sharing your time with us. We're very excited to host Single Onion number 205. Well, Single Onion have put together a stellar lineup for you this evening, and they all have books, which is awesome. Those are available up front. To begin, I'd like to say that we are gathered in celebration with instances on the lands of the Treaty 7 people, including the Blackfoot from Sisika, Garneau from Ugani, the Dene from Sipena, and the Stoney Dakota from Morley, the Bearspaw, Chiniki, and the Stoney First Nations. We also walk in the footsteps of the Métis people from Region 3, the Métis Nation of Alberta. A little bit of housekeeping. I already mentioned the books up front, but I'll mention them again. Washrooms are from the door to your right. There are some refreshments available on the table in the back. Over there. And that's all for me. I hand things over now to our host for this evening, David Martin.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. This is indeed Single Onion number 205. I forgot about WordFest. I used to try and work around them, and then I gave up. But their poetry, what do they call that? Their big poetry event, I think, is on Friday, so we're not directly in competition. We have 4 excellent poets for you this evening. Just for the roadmap for you, we'll have 2 readers and then a snack break, and then 2 more readers after that. I'll have some little housekeeping things as we come back after our break. But let's get into some poetry. Our first reader is Tanya Laley. Spent her childhood on a farm in Niagara on the Lake. She started her winery there in 2000 with her family. Certified as a sommelier, she worked in the wine trade until 2020. In 2022, she received an MFA in creative writing from UBC. She lives in Calgary with her daughters and writes poetry, essays, and short fiction. Her first full-length collection, Farm, Lot 23, was published by Red Press in 2024. And as June said, we've got copies at the front, so please welcome Tanya.
Thanks, David, and June, and Shelf Life, and all of you for being here. It's a real privilege to be here and read with the excellent lineup of poets I get to read with tonight. I'm going to read from my book. This is my ratty author's copy, so if you're interested in the book, it'll look better than this without all these colored tabs. Yeah, this is really about the farm where I grew up, and more of a childhood perspective or relationship, a body relationship, a young body relationship to that place. And I had the pleasure of being able to sit with my older self and visit that younger person and be there on that farm, which is no longer in my family. So a big part of, I think, wanting to write the book was to say goodbye, or maybe hello in a different way to that place where I grew up. So I'm reading poems that I haven't read from this book in public before, so hopefully that's a good thing. I have read them, just not gathering of people. The first is called, that I'll read, is called No Trespassing. And it begins with an epigraph by Una Biss from an essay she wrote, Theft of the Commons. This is the epigraph. The nature of ownership changed within the newly set hedges of an enclosed field, where the landowner now had the exclusive right to dictate how the land was used, and no one else belonged there. No trespassing. As the crow flies, the coyote lopes, yip howls open the night, bindweed entwines my mother's roses. A white-tailed deer drops to her knees to skirt the trellis. At dusk, I follow 2 blue herons to the U.S. border, watch them crossing without missing a beat. American toads pond the pool, spawn in dark pearl strands. Spores mushroom in the weeds between hardpan tracks. The sprayer drenches hot July air in pesticide. There's a blur at cumulonimbus fringes that belongs to any shifting threshold. On a far, far farm road, a stinging rain pelts dust. Cedars fur the north property line, branch out past the rectangle signs, pounded at measured paces. Don't trust me. I live by the grid, bent to the letter of the law. Our next in the woods. And another epigraph for this poem by the wonderful farmer poet Wendell Berry, and from his book The Art of Loading Brush. And for a long time in our traditions, we have called this being natura, or kind, or nature. And if we forget, our language remembers for us the relation of natural by way of kind to kindness and kin, and to native, nativity, and nation. Where I grew up, the land grows chestnut, basswood, black walnut, American elm, black willow, bitternut hickory, blue beech, butternut, blue ash, gray birch. Wooded area now covers less than 12% of the region's acreage. The cucumber tree lives here too, apparently. And common hop tree, never heard of it. Shagbark hickory, again news to me, again indigenous. Silver maple, sycamore, white oak, white birch, yellow birch, tulip, white ash, sassafras. After the Royal Proclamation of 1763, after the Treaty of Niagara, after the Treaty of Fort Niagara, after the British acquired thousands of acres in exchange for 12,000 blankets, 23,500 yards of cloth, jaw harps, thousands of silver earbobs, after the Mississaugas accepted 300 suits of clothing in exchange for exactly what is unclear, but is recorded as the ownership of a 4-mile strip of land along the Niagara River between Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. After the colonizers cleared land to plant corn, wheat, other vegetables, and to raise livestock, only a few of them. Later farmers like the ones in my family replaced unprofitable fruit trees with European grapevines for wine. Others erected greenhouses to supply the grocery market. In these ongoing ways, sunlight lands hotter on the soil, the horizon sinks, carbon rises, and we know roads, subdivisions, shopping malls, how they supplant, how they grow. To be clear, it's not that you'd ever have witnessed any obvious violence. No giant fires raged, and in this part of the world, the river runs narrow and brief. Okay, the next one's a little lighter in tone, and it's very seasonal for me because it's about spreading boxes for grape harvest, a job I did with my dad. And I think you can hear the childish play in the way that the poem is written as well. It's called Hitch Clang Woe, Spreading Boxes for Harvest, 2 ways. When my dad says whoa, I stand on the clutch to stop the slow-moving tractor, and the wagon hitch clangs while its spruce planks jounce, as the crickets sing, as the geese honk, as the engine knocks. Sunlight flees by the minute west-west. Diesel, grapes, weeds scent a nest. My dad on the wagon, then jump off, then hop on. My dad flings boxes down the row until a box gets stuck and he says, "Whoa!" And I press on the clutch and it breaks our flow. Before we pick it up again, slow, slow, we go down, down the row. I'm at the wheel of the Case International, too young to drive a car. My dad alights on the seesawing wagon behind me, shuffles the box supply so there's always one flying, one landing. When a box sticks in the stack, he hollers, "Whoa!" And I shift my weight onto the long clutch so the wagon doesn't jerk, bounce against the hitch, though it does. My dad holds fast on the spruce planks, eyeballs the yield as we go, lets his take on the crop set the beat, determine the box swing rhythm. We're playing to the crop. One of the countless feels for things in farming. We work 3 rows at once. Half the boxes must clear high wires, sail over leafy growth that sways like concert arms. My dad's golden brow glistens in the late light, in its falling. A purple honey saddles the wetness, riding on the day's heat release. Night sounds begin to hook the day's end. Crickets, whoa, honk, knock, knock, whoa, clang, crickets, honk. A bird banger squeal crack, crickets, honk, whoa, clang. And the sunlight curls west, 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 blurring all our lines. Time for a little water. Okay, I'll read 2 more. One is called Errol Moon, and it's a tribute, which many of these poems are, to the Jamaican migrant workers who I came to know when I lived on the farm. And Errol was a longtime friend. And also Moon, have you seen the moon the last night and tonight? Yeah, so I needed to read a moon poem. Yeah. It's called Errol Moon. During the winter when Errol lived in Jamaica, between the last farm season and this one, a cow landed on the hood of his car, which until then he employed as a taxi. In his spare hours back in Canada, Errol hustles to find parts and tools to fix his taxi once home. In the evening, I hear him hammering together a shipping crate. Doubled over with mirth, he tells the story. Supposes the cow had been coming down from her trip over the moon. That's how it had happened, right out of the blue. Okay, I have a number of projects on the go, but one of them is a little chapbook I'm hoping on summer jobs, which is bringing up more kind of intensely personal stuff than I thought it would be, than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be a lot more lighthearted. But it turns out that one of those summer jobs is on the subject of the farm, and I had wanted in this farm to include some things, of course, in this farm book, and they just didn't happen. They didn't fit in. And one of those things was a certain sound, the sound of the lunch siren. And if you've ever worked in rural areas, there's a lunch siren that lets the people in the field know that it's lunchtime. So I got that in this poem. This is called Hoeing Vines in July. My mother's call slits the breath of my dream world, so that the day already has me by the throat. From the open window, the smell of plants sweating, and the long piercing cicada timbrels like cries from trees. There's work that's built from the carpentry of the word, from the hardened back of the K, the lathed round of the O, the shrunken crook of the lowercase r, and the deep hand-shoveled ditches in W. I come to it lung fit and muscle hard from competitive swimming, cross-country running. The weeds don't care. Pigweed like a crop of Jack's beanstalks, thistles so tall and sure you'd guard your borders with them, dandelions that could drill for oil. The seasoned spruce handle blisters my palms at a glance. My bikini bare back cooks like a hide left to dry in an open field. I hack at weeds more than hoe them, a desperate, often failing act. I feel close to understanding the origin of earthenware, the first pottery epiphanies as they must have arisen from the ground's baked hardness and a longing to hold water by the hand. The worst was to stare down the row overcome with weeds, especially at the start of the day with no proof that anything like a row of vines could ever come clean again. The hoe blade makes a dull thud when, reckless and raging at the weeds, I draw the blade too high, swing it too close to the tender trunks, and it strikes the young vine's flesh near the soil. Our mother, who has owl ears for that sound, gasps, launches into worst-case scenarios, as if all this time I've been out here not helping but killing vines, killing our future. By our late teens, my sister and me find buoyancy in the songs on the tapes in our Walkmans. We lose ourselves in the music's lift, find a way to drift while hoeing. But it's the years before Walkmans I'm trying to recall to my body. The hoeing summers when we had to locate rhythm on our own, sing our own songs, make jokes about the sense of hopelessness we felt against the work before us. Times when the work became the day we made together with it. Times I didn't count the vines, the minutes, wait with grave impatience for the lunchtime siren. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tanya. That was fantastic. The carpentry of words. I'm going to hold on to that first. Our next poet is Ian FitzGerald. Ian spent 30 years as an advertising copywriter and creative director, including writing for TV and radio plays. Poetry was a sideline. In 2020, the first poem he ever submitted for publication was accepted, and now he's hooked. A book-length collection of poems stemming from advertising slogans is his current project, and the book's title is Each Mouth Dripping in its own rich, creamy goodness, from which the chapbook, Each Mouth Dripping, which we have over there, is excerpted. He is an assistant professor advertising at the Alberta University of Arts, Calgary. Please welcome Ian FitzGerald.
I have some props. And so I'll try to use my glasses and read and show you the things that I brought that I made. So, this is fan food, not fast food. It is 1947. Chuck Yeager exceeds speed of sound in an X-1 rocket-powered test plane, and Dairy Queen lands its 100th location. Dip cones, burgers, shakes, and fries, not savored, stuffed. Feel full fast. Soft serve speeds life. It's 2021. 1.35 million salivating fans watch on TV. Joey Chestnut eclipses his own world record, wolfs 76 hot dogs with bun in 10 minutes flat. I watch through the drive-through window. The soft serve machine excretes a sweet, white, crystalline substance like an intestine, with a curly-Q twirl on top. more setup. Let's see if I can get this going. You're in good hands with Allstate. He's got the whole world in his hands, so why worry? Commercials use the voice of God, serene, omniscient, believable. Mishap occurs, I call 1-800-COVER ME. God just drew to an inside straight, busy bidding up the kitty. John Milton, Joan of Arc, the Virgin Mary, and 3 dead popes are in the game. Mary checks, rolls back from the table, picks up on the 3rd ring. Her crown is a combination halo and headset. Allstate High Heaven. How may I direct your call? She purrs. I accidentally fell. You're in good hands. She reassures. Am I covered? Hell yes, unless a tornado caused your fall. A tornado? Act of God. It's his favorite out card. Please hold while I transfer you. Thank you for choosing Allstate. I fold my hands in prayer, wait for the claims department. The on-hold music is gospel. Which one's next? I've got a list. Oh, yeah. Melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Mouth me the words, impolite to speak in the carpet dark room, seats rising to a point of light opposite the silver screen that fills one entire wall. In my lap, a bag of hard-shelled candy crinkles. You shush me. I go quiet. On the screen, wars on stars, maybe Mars. Heroes fight, fall, fight again against other colored bad guys. Always look like Nazis. Dark, disciplined. We sit, eyes wide as meteors. In the bag, the other colored candy, greens, yellows, oranges, blues, and browns, pushed to the top, eager for my saliva. Take off your coat. Stay a while. Red pill melting on my tongue. Credits climb the screen. You're already gone. My hands are clean. I'm left to let it settle in an emptied, silent darkness. Okay. Let's move into the beverage aisle. It's in here somewhere. This bud's for you. I am a molecule. C2H2OH. I wet whistles, inhibit inhibitions, take the edge off pronunciation. Springtime in America 2023. TikTok star and Bud Light fan celebrates 365 days of being a woman. Ignites a hullabaloo. Not my department. I slip down any old throat. The long, slithery sword swallower, the toned, trained chords of a diva, the corroded gullet too narrow to swallow a trans woman swigging his beer with her picture on it. I just don't care. I am a molecule who knows his, her, their job. 1, go down smooth. 2, quench. 3. Lubricate society. LGBTQ, MAGA, Episcopalian, Jew, even underage. It's a great big vat. And this is a volume business. Slur used to mean what a mouth does after 6 or 7 beers. Pull tab, cracks can. My escape from all this pressure. I gush. I overflow. Okay. Oh yes, this one. What's in your wallet? I misplaced this today. I was out shopping for a can of Bud Light, and I left this on the counter in the place. Had to rush back. I was a little traumatized. But I'm okay now. What's in your wallet? I stoop. Scoop this wallet laying lost on the ground. Furtive glance over shoulder. Long suppressed urge to peer into others' affairs makes me peek. First, for cash. 2 20s and a 10. I blush. 11 separate folds, pockets, pouches, slide-in slots hold frequent flyer, coffee shop cards, punched, unpunched, memberships, bus pass, bar-coded library card, small, flat, numbered key, 3 photo booth photos, 1 with mustache drawn in, a prescription, paper, plastic, the cash, and a name. J. Doe. Who is this? Whose is this? I shall return it, but not just yet. I crave the tantalizing thrill of piecing together marvelous, mysterious J. Doe. Like a profiler on a cop show. I've lost a wallet. It's traumatic. She or he must be distraught. Maybe he or she doesn't even know it's missing yet. I remember as a youngster that time with my fathers. He asleep in the backyard, I in the dim of their bedroom, guiltily looking at things I shouldn't see. As if it were a present, under the tree, I rubbed my thumb around outlined shape in the only closed compartment. Could be a condom. I dare not confirm. And, yes. This brand, Bluebonnet margarine, no longer available in Canada. I had to get this package from the States. Everything's better with Bluebonnet on it. Morning breaks. Sparkle filter on a sun-kissed kitchen. Everything you need to start your day. Margarine spread so thick you can barely detect the toasted airiness of Wonder Bread underneath. Tall glass of Tang, Fruit Loops with powdered milk completes the scene, sets up the brush-cut teen for a high-caliber day. Shiny-faced Jimmy eats up, smiles at aproned Mom. Mom smiles back. Channels Donna Reed, June Cleaver, and Aunt Bee. Can't believe how quickly Jimmy's growing into his brother's old clothes, his father's feet. His country calls. Jimmy answers. Gets helmet, rifle, tags, climbs onto a C-130 transport, added to the casualty list just 3 weeks in. Along a glossy granite wall in Washington, D.C., she walks among thousands of Jimmys. Everything seems synthetic or broken or both. She drops to her knees, slips a knife from her purse, and tries to scrape off his name. not the same when you're hungry. Pang hits. Growl turns to grumble, turns to grumpy. Snap at the wife. Mutter the dog. Kick patience to the curb. Retreat to my lair, or slam ham sandwich the empty fridge door. Tummy calls for backup. Squeeze play by the liver, the spleen, colon, bladder, kidneys, lungs from above, the spine out back. It's a war down there. Expansionist-minded neighbors sense weakness, mobilized to gain territory. Land war, fought for every square millimeter. Fumes from a hunger strike climb the windpipe, stench the back of my throat, my breath like mustard gas floating over Flanders. Up in the brain box, bile, the vile, overweight overlord, sits in a gamer's throne, controls it all with a joystick drumstick and a 3-thumbed keyboard console. Snickering, he gabbles down mittfuls of tiny tuna packs, the ones doled out on Halloween. He has no interest in a truce. Raid kills bugs dead. Alethrin is the primary active ingredient in Raid insecticides. I'm every dead bug. Drain drowned spider, wiper blade mosquito, scurrying centipede crushed underfoot. Every dead bug back for revenge. Fly swatters, fair game. Moths to a flame, okay. Even those nasty glue strips. But chemical warfare? Nastier still. You started it, Alethrin. Escalated by lumping all of us hexapod invertebrates of the class Insecta under one unflattering moniker, bugs. Oh, such an insult. We're gunning for you, Alethrin. We all watched Men in Black. Did you? Dead zapped insect aliens morph back to life, and that's what's coming. Every undead insect you thought you'd killed. It's a zombie flick, and you won't like the ending. We know how to bite. We invented safe injection sites. We'll eat your sweaters and your rugs, your young, your pets. We'll shit on your food and swim up your ear canal. We'll get you in bed. Once we're in, a lethal cocktail. Pyrethroid, perhaps? Cyfluthrin with your pralethrin? Tetrathrin? Imiprothrin? Cypermethrin? Permethrin? Piperonol butoxide? I'd say pick your poison, but you won't have a choice. I picture you a cadaver, wrapped in a plastic gingham tablecloth. Tables turned. Dead bugs kill Raid. One more. Oh, I wish I were an Oscar Mayer wiener. I'd put a choke chain on that wiener dog. Make English my shit-talking vernacular bitch. Bring her to heel. Teach her tricks. Dirt nap. And she'll play dead. Shut your cake hole means stop her barking. Grab some Z's means lie down. And when it's time to do her business, I'll shout, flip a trout. Thus trained and in heat, I'll let her loose on the world to spread sharp-edged slang and wisecracker lingo. Henceforth, fall down becomes faceplant. Making love is rumpy-pumpy. Sandals are always JC water walkers, and pecker snot is what spurts from a lover's spout. Idioms only idiots don't love. Bland, beige, blah, blah that neither offends nor affects gets approved by sanitation officers. It's pablum. Bores me, bugs me, belittles my intellect. Shit talk spices speech. The must-heard tang of mustard. Relish to make it more realish. Ketchup that keeps you caught up. I wish I were a wiener is a weird phallic fantasy. A hot dog is a tube steak. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ian. Don't forget your wallet. I know what you do.
Yeah, it's traumatic.
You watch it. We're going to take a short break. We've got some refreshments over on the side. If you'd like some wine, there's a suggested donation of $5, but there's also some water and snacks. We'll be back in, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes with 2 more poets. So see you in a bit. Thanks.
That's valid. You know, who cares? It's not a slam poetry. Slam, you can't use any prompts. I think.
I remember that as a sort of a rule, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? Regular poetry, whatever, mix it up.
Yeah.
It's like symphonic music would be better if there was like visuals. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Are you interested in selling your hot dog mobile?
No.
Okay.
But it's interesting that somebody wants to buy it.
You didn't even hear my offer.
No, not yet.
I was going to offer a couple copies of Dave's book and Kirk's book.
Oh boy.
But I guess you don't like poetry.
Oh, there's an assumption. This is a very interesting negotiation so far.
Well, I'm throwing it out there randomly. Because obviously money was right?
We're going to get started again, everybody, if you want to grab your seats. Okay. Is this mic on, though?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we're going to get started, everybody, if you want to grab your seats. And while everybody's grabbing their spot, I've just got some housekeeping stuff to let you know about. If you want to learn more about the Single Onion, you can find us at singleonion.com. We've got an email list you can sign up for. Once a month you'll get an email about what we're up to. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. The open mic we're in the process of finding a new venue for that. So for now it's paused.
That's on pause.
It will be back though. I want to give a big thanks to the Canada Council for the Arts, the Writers Guild of Alberta, Calgary Arts Development, the League of Canadian Poets, and of course Shelf Life Books for being our sponsors and supporters for so many years. We really do appreciate all that they do for us. Thank you. I want to give a big thanks to the Single Onion crew, Kirk Miles, Paul Marshall, Paul Kelly, Will Lawrence, Laurie D. Roadhouse, and Josephine Leray. And helping us out on sound and video tonight, we've got Nash and Lucas. And yeah, give it up for them. And Will mentioned that the video from tonight's event should be up in about 3 days. Our next Single Onion event will be November 21st back here at Shelf Life Books. It will feature Rob McLennan and Christine McNair from Ottawa. And also the Magpie Poets of Calgary will be launching a new anthology, including Josephine Leray and lots of local poets that you probably know. I think that's everything. So our next poet is Trisia Eddy Woods. She grew up spending summers on horseback exploring both Alberta and Manitoba, and she currently lives in Edmonton with her family, which includes an array of four-legged companions. And I love seeing your photos. Her artwork has been exhibited both close to home and internationally, and is held in the special collection of the Herron Art Library. A former editor for Red Nettle Press, Tricia's writing has appeared widely in literary journals and chapbooks across North America, including Contemporary Verse 2, the Garneau Review, and New American Writing. Her first full-length collection, A Roadmap for Finding Wild Horses, was released in spring of 2024 with Turnstone Press. And again, we do have copies at the front, so please welcome Trisia.
Thank you, David. And thank you to Shelf Life Books. I've never actually been here before, despite having lived in Alberta my entire life. So it's a nice reason to come, and a beautiful crowd. And I'm really honored to be sharing the evening with all of these other wonderful poets as well. I seem to never actually decide what I'm reading before the reading. I don't know why. I spend a lot of time driving because of the horses, of course, the ones that are wild and both my own. So I tend to just sort of ruminate while I'm driving. I look around at what's happening at the world outside, the leaves falling. Today, of course, I drove down from Edmonton, so I was like, what are people going to in Calgary? What do they want to hear this evening? And so I actually decided that I'm going to read some very Albertan poems from the book. It was written over the span of about 7 or 8 years, and it began because I was obsessed with discovering the wild horse herds that live out in the eastern foothills of our Rocky Mountains. And initially I had gone to take photographs, but then of course, as happens, you start taking notes and you write, your thoughts and experiences. And I did research, and I spoke to other people who had been searching for them and discovering them, spoke to Stony elders about the history of the horses in the area, and I learned a lot. But essentially what happened was I spent a lot of time by myself, and I learned a lot about my inner thoughts, and I learned a lot about the landscape and our relationship with industry in Alberta. So that is sort of the gist of the book. But I thought, as I was driving down the Q2, most of us have a sort of innate sense of what Alberta is like. So hopefully the poems I read tonight give you some of that. So this one is called Trying to Describe What Silence Looks Like. There are not many places where the wild feels so boundless. Here, bring bear spray, wear sturdy boots, be prepared for the possibility of being lost for a while. Cell phones are no longer an option. If you take the trail that seems liminal, be warned about the descent. Eardrums strain to find faint vibrations of traffic or electrical lines, the hum of street lamps that permeate a city at night, proof of a pulse. Here the quiet is a solid wave that consumes you. When you hear a crow caw or an elk bugle, it is carried crisp and clear as sharp-edged ice breaking a rib cage open. Rivers traverse where they desire. White-tailed deer bound across human-made roads, once simply lines drawn on paper. Keepsakes. The only bears I've seen so far this spring are in their traces. They hide out, sometimes with the words I am searching for. I can feel them when I leave the trails, sit with my face turned towards the sun. A prickle up the spine. A tree trunk pushed over, the ground churned by a methodical mauling of hibernated hunger, a long tongue eager to taste the spice of insect larvae and switchgrass shoots. Tufts left on branches. An imprint of broad feet. Leather deeply embedded on the residue of winter. I collect these remnants as souvenirs, carry small knots of hair in my pockets to roll between my fingers. A lot of the time that I spent out there, I was really fascinated with the way in which we access, we're accessing this area only because of the fact that industry has already accessed the area. So you're driving, in your four-wheel drive, your ATV, your hatchback Subaru is what I have because I live in Edmonton, but the only reason I'm driving out there is because there's logging trucks coming and going and people, going back and forth maintaining gas wells. So I spend a lot of time thinking about that, and I spend a lot of time driving on these roads. I spent a lot of time driving down roads that I wasn't supposed to be driving down. This is restricted areas. 1. When you arrive on this landscape, those pump jacks groan, pistons gliding with each wheeze, pressure. Narrow trails lead to keyholes containing sour gas, chain link, warning signs. A loud vibrating beam squeals amidst lodgepole and limestone invading. 2. Each road ends in an abrupt fragment. Hoofprints tell tales of separation. A body sorrows to hold the story of surviving here. 3. Wild horses ask, "Why are you a stranger to your body?" I reply, "The earth hurts." Do people in Calgary actually call it Cowtown?
Not as often as sometimes.
I got a new name though recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what's it, like Blue Sky Country or something ridiculous? Yeah,
We're working on a new name.
it's pretty bad.
You never know, right? Like, people call Edmonton Deadmonton all the time. And it's like, oh. Anyway, this is my poem about cows, because I love cows, but we also all know what cows do to the landscape. Meander lines. Wildness is fierce and audacious in the Alberta foothills, their outline undulating magenta against the horizon. Clouds hung to gauge our mood. The farther up the mountain incline, the more redolent the essence of wild horses drifts, an intoxicating current that draws one higher. Their manes curl, and their tails flag in defiance of being restrained by human myth. They are perpetual motion. Follow the streams downhill towards the east, however, and that current collides with large congregations of grazing cattle left to roam the free leases. As early as late spring, these cattle can be found ruminating on the prairie grasses just beginning to sprout. Come high summer, a drive along the trunk road is like a stroll through a steamy bathhouse. Cows heavy with heat saunter along ditches and ignore the calves who frolic out onto the gravel, reckless of oncoming trucks. Chewing and chewing while they wallow in pools of shade. Chewing and chewing while tuning out the incessant buzz of black flies and mosquitoes. Shallow creeks with fragile banks that provide drinking water become slides of mud filled with sediment, the exhausted foothill slopes becoming cratered. A moon fractured by hundreds of cloven hooves carrying the weight of half-ton bovines. So I'm going to end with a piece that's a little longer, but very much that Alberta experience if ever you go out in the land. The book is sort of written as though it were a journey through the seasons, and so we started in spring and summer, and now we're in winter. Mother and child. It is a cold, biting day. My daughter and I have made the trek through layers of winter to photograph the season's changes so far. It is morning, yet closing in on noon, so the sun is as high in the sky as it will travel, barely hanging above the horizon. Trails are deserted, with the odd snowmobile track carved in fresh snow. There is a difference between feeling alone and feeling exposed. Up ahead, we see a dark cloud of crow and raven. A bald eagle takes wing and launches itself high into the air, then dives back down, briefly scattering the scavengers. There is a ripple, part excitement, part trepidation. There's only one reason for gatherings like this. Violently red blood appears on the pristine white landscape. Shocking, not surprising. Instantly, we imagine someone has shot one of the wild horses, as has been known to happen. Speed limit signs and warnings of sharp curves ahead are also targets, peppered with bullet holes. This blood is still bright from the night before, perhaps even this evening. My instinct is to help somehow. I grab my camera from the backpack, instruct my daughter to stay here. My feeling is that she needs to be protected from the disturbance at the end of the trail. As soon as I turn to leave, I remember she is on the brink of adulthood. Her silence tells me children know death too. The path is easy to follow. There are tracks, dirt, dried leaves stirred up from underneath. Disheveled. Several meters ahead, a large mass lies still on the ground. My breath catches. Clenched, I realize I've just left my daughter alone. I can discern two separate bodies, a dozen feet apart, one significantly smaller than the other. A mother and her child. Far too large to be horses. They are moose, a cow and a calf, and hunting season long over. Headless corpses left as waste, poached. In the back of my mind, I recall a calf moose requires a special license and must be identified with its head intact. Scavengers perched in the apprehensive poplars are eager for me to leave their feeding site. I sink to my knees in the transfused snow. Remembering my camera, I swing it from my back to capture the scene for a report to Alberta Wildlife. I am suddenly a morbid portrait photographer. I am suddenly the disturbance at the end of the trail. Wind bites, an acute reminder of my daughter watching me. Her figure strains, wanting to see what I see. The sting on my cheeks is frozen tears. My nose is running. I wipe it on the back of my glove and wonder what I was protecting her from. The imagined nightmare is just a bleak scene of uncomplicated loss. Just sharp cold I can feel in my own bones. The clearing is silent, aside from a single crow calling a lament. Sky and ground both painted the same shade of gray-blue. Ice crystals hang in the air, reflecting this frozen mother and her child left to be reintegrated into the landscape. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tricia. That was wonderful. We have one more poet this evening. Rayanne Haynes is an award-winning hybrid author and pushcart-nominated poet, as well as a cultural producer and of intersectional films, stage shows, and panels. Rayanne has penned 3 poetry collections: The Stories in My Skin from 2013, Stained with the Colors of Sunday Morning from 2017, and Tell the Birds Your Body is Not a Gun from Frontenac House in 2021, which won the Stephen G. Stephenson Award, the Alberta Literary Award for Poetry, as well as being shortlisted for both the BPAA Robert Crouch Award for Poetry and the National Relit Award for Poetry. She hosts the literary podcast Crow Reads, is the president of the League of Canadian Poets, which we really appreciate because they're very supportive of us here at the Single Onion, and is an assistant professor at MacEwan University. Her poetic memoir, What Kind of Daughter, was released in the fall of 2024 with Frontenac House, and we're very happy to have her with us. Rayanne Haynes.
Hi. Thanks so much, David. Thanks everybody for being here today or tonight. I also drove up from Edmonton, which is Treaty 6 territory, amiskwaciywâskahikan, and I'm really delighted to be able to bring stories and tales from there to Calgary. I will say that my partner's family lives here, so we come back and forth a fair amount, and I feel like I'm always struck between Edmonton's River Valley and Calgary's River Valley and the vast differences between them and how much I love both for many different reasons. So it was nice to kind of drive down through and up over here for that. What Kind of Daughter is, yes, it's a poetic memoir. My mother, who I was very, very close with, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we spent most of that time together as a cohort, my sister and my mother and I. She was diagnosed at stage 3, probably stage 4. She did not survive the cancer, unfortunately. And I found myself writing through her diagnosis and through her time as a way to kind of, I guess, cope with my own grief around what was happening. And I thought that I was writing about my mother, but in fact what happened, of course, as does happen, is I began writing about my own experiences. Her journey brought up a lot of memories of growing up in rural Alberta and all of the things that women tend to go through on our journey, and also the burden of care that women kind of take on when someone is passing. So the book really did become a memoir, more so than what I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to read some pieces from that with you. I'm going to start with the, where is it? Okay. The poem in the book that is named the title. I'm looking for it and trying to save at the same time. So the title poem of the book, thank you, which is What Kind of Daughter? My mother leaves her doors unlocked at night. One dog at her feet, one dog on her lap, cat perched along the back of the sofa. During chemo, she posts animal memes on social media, has buried a dozen pets in the back field and all her parents in cemeteries. To live that long, to be too young. One day we will bury her. We'll inherit her pets before we are ready. Woman of oak tree. What kind of daughter does not stop? 1,000 mothers and 1,000 daughters who have done this before turn their head from sky in wondering, strain to hear the answer, turn observation from ambition, duty, feet paused. How long do we live paused? We must answer questions we are shamed for asking. Death sits early at the door, waiting. Woman with the pale heaven eyes, what kind of daughter does not pause? My mother lives loud and hard. 40 horses in the back 40, 20 stalls that need cleaning in the front. 1 million little girls dream the life she has been living. 1 million farmers' wives with broken knees and skin like Naugahyde know the work she puts in. Mother of mountain and boulder and skipping stone, to sit in the meadow, wheatgrass and girlhood against my back, to taste the salt of my maiden name in river water, to lay still in the stillness, to lay still. The sand at the river's edge, the sparrow in the wheat field. Generations dig roots of raspberry stalk, bodies blemished with the color of crabapple, mustard seed, lavender, the coffee that smells like my grandfather, the bread on the windowsill, the sage and thyme left in the garden, the time to be this, to find ease. Mother of rock, what kind of daughter writes poems that feel like endings? So I spent a lot of time really considering my own growing up journey and some of the ways that my identity was shaped or groomed or lost. And this is a poem about that. How a daughter folds. Through consumption, in measured beats, because of repetition, needles by nice men and nice ladies piercing skin, cyaniding blood. 1. That time that boy's hand dug inside my panties, and I kept silent because I was already complicit for lying there. These are the instructions we've been given. 2. The Jordache jeans with the zipper from front to back and how they were the it style before rape culture had a name. 3. Teen magazines with articles about the best sex positions and 7 reasons why he cheats on you when I didn't even know the slang blowjob because my parents didn't know how to talk about that stuff or wouldn't talk about that stuff for fear my sister and I would turn into sluts. And then Tammy came to school dressed in that bright green miniskirt and red lipstick, and we all decided to hate her, and she slowly faded away, and no one said a thing because being her friend meant we were like her. And one day Tammy wasn't in school anymore, and Jason said it was because she got pregnant, but I still didn't know how that actually happened, and I asked before forgetting to keep my mouth shut. And Jason laughed in my face and called me a baby, so I went home and asked Mom, but Dad overheard and screamed that he wouldn't have a slut in his house. So I cried into that teen magazine and learned being a good woman meant being silent. 4, because I could have loved Jenny, but good girls don't love girls like that. 5, Botox and butt implants, but like natural, you know? 6, porn culture and purity culture and how we're supposed to look like one but behave like the other. 7, income inequity. 8, because the worst thing to call someone in North America is a cunt. So, I'm going to have to do that until the end. So when Mom was diagnosed, we were told about the BRCA gene, BRCA gene, and my sister and I had to be tested and all of that to see if we had it, because ovarian cancer is hereditary. And I've also had breast cancer and have breast cancer again right now. So this poem kind of speaks to some of the things that we women go through. The genetic mistake. My bare bum hangs out from the blue paper gown. In the room, the nurse pushes the cold wand inside me. This is what I've come to consider self-care. Twice yearly check-ins before the eventual hysterectomy. I hold no substantial fear of the dissection of myself from the inside out, only of what else could grow in a place already barren. Will the doctors cross their hearts when they unbuckle womb from fallopian tube? If not, will the cremator when I become an urn? Though mostly I am thinking of my breasts, of a mouth on my nipple, of how I'd willingly, gratefully purge my cervix to keep from vanishing. In the room, I close my eyes, think of the soft body of myself, my 2 dense breasts. I pray they find nothing. My scares sit like scars heavy on my chest, listening to the fearful owl in the backyard and the birds of prey circling overhead. I feel more in tune with the sound of their hunt than the baby blackbird begging for sustenance from inside the safety of its house. Guys, that's okay. I'm going to read, tips for swimming. So there's a woman named Karen Macuse. Sorry, I forget. I know, I'm reading it in my brain. She has a blog and she gives people pictures of trash and then asks them to write poems about it for her online journal. And so she gave me a picture of this empty bottle of lager and asked me to write a poem about it. And this is what came out. I should say I spend a lot of time in BC. I'm back and forth quite often. My husband and I have like a very raw piece of land out on Gabriola Island. And so this poem was written there. Tips for swimming. This past summer, a little high, I plunged into the Pacific, shoved an empty bottle of lager, all that was left in the fridge, under my beach bag so I wouldn't forget at the end of the day the tide comes in and swallows the beach. In the salt water I float, gulping back the grief that still comes unbidden, The pain of mother loss acts like sea suck, the give and take, the mostly take, the ache pulled through my throat each time I try to breathe past this loss. A nudist, half hidden behind a collection of driftwood, offers space, a kind of easy companionship, neither of us asking anything of the other, each of us ignoring what the other wants to hide, his flesh, my guilt, an addiction squirming below skin, and I'm trying not to drown in it. No extraordinary measures. The thing is, after my mother's death, I drank myself tattered for a little while. There is some measure of relief in recognizing this, the way aching made me ravenous, and now the way I've begun to think of grief as a sapling, the way I feed it. I'm going to end with also a bit of a longer piece. This book is it's a poetic memoir. There's mixtures of really brief poems, one-lines, poems with no form, essays, braided poetic pieces together. It's very much a non-formed kind of collection, which works for me. So this is an essay, a poetic essay that I wrote, and it was first published in the Globe and Mail, and it is about my mother's time in the hospital and us losing her. So I'm going to end with this. Pink blooms. You make the decision, Dad says to me after the emergency doctor reports, your mum is a very sick woman. We are standing in the hallway and her face is contorted into that semblance of professional grief meant to assure me there is nothing left they can do. There is nothing more we should do, she says. But that must be your decision. It's up to you, of course, she reiterates. The previous morning, lying in the hospital bed, Mum asked, is this what dying feels like? I turned my head to look out the dirt-streaked window at the cars racing down the main drag in downtown Edmonton. I say to my sister and Dad, I don't want her dying while cut open on an operating table, and they solemnly nod while agreeing. No, we don't want that. It should be up to all of us, but yes, Rayanne will be the spokesperson, my family says. And I agree because I am the strongest of them. Asking Dad to make that decision is out of the question. My sister is already too fragile because of her divorce. My brother, her baby, cannot take on something like this, saying the words to let Mum go and then holding firm. It would be too much to ask any of them, and we agree. I am the strongest about these kinds of things. We agree to no extraordinary measures, I say to the doctor outside in the hallway where Mum can't hear. The doctors tell us that even though she is mostly asleep, she can still hear. When lucid, she's still asking for popsicles and ice cream. By talking in the hallway, my family doesn't have to acknowledge the decision. It lets them remain neutral. They do not have to say the words. I wonder later, still, if they hold me accountable for my mother's death. In the dark, I hold myself accountable. I need to see a counselor. I know this. For 10 days, I watched my mother die, and now I'm writing about it. Sometimes I think I am perverse with this need to write about it. When you watch someone die, you spend a lot of time talking about all the wonderful things they meant to you, all the beautiful ways they touched your life. You listen to your aunt tell childhood stories about how they tortured their younger brother and rebelled against their stepmother, and how your mother always wanted to marry a farmer. How when Mum found out Dad was a horseman, she made him her choice. You talk about the pile of stuffed animals she still has next to her bed because she refused to let that childlike part of her go. You do not talk about the ways she frustrated you or how terrified you are of what comes next. You do all of this because you must do something to stay sane while syringing water down her throat. Outside of Mum's room, my sister says, "I don't understand," for the 50th time that week, and I want to punch her in the face. What doesn't she understand? That cancer kills? Are you sure they need to give her such a heavy dose of painkiller? My aunt asks within Mum's earshot for the 10th time that week, and I say, yes, they do. We don't want her suffering for the 10th time that week. There is anger in that room, mixed with the grief and disbelief. When my brother arrives with a Tim Hortons ice cap, we spread the liquid over Mum's lips with our fingers and she opens her eyes. When we ask, "Do you want more?" she nods and whispers, "More." And we all laugh. When I say after the 10th spoonful, "Maybe that's enough," Mum squints her eyes into a glare and cocks her finger like a gun, and we all laugh again. We know this will be a memory we share over and over after she is gone to highlight our Mum's humor and strength. We'll add it to the stories to be told at her celebration of life. I keep a notebook with me while in the room watching her die, so I can write the stories down. You'll deliver the eulogy, my family says. And I agree, because I'm the writer and performer and will be the best to do this kind of thing. But I keep wondering if she pointed the gun at me because I said no extraordinary measures. 10 years ago, I gave my mom a cutting from my Christmas cactus. Her cutting grew and grew and grew until she had starter plants of her own to share with friends. Mine stopped blooming 8 years ago. Mum took pleasure in taunting me with pictures of her plant every time the pink buds popped open. We would chuckle and I would say, "Stop bragging, you're such a brat." Eventually, my poor excuse for a cactus weakened so much that I shoved the final shreds of it in with a spider plant and let happen what would happen. No extraordinary measures. 7 weeks after Mum's death, that tiny shred of a cactus plant bloomed. I walked into my bathroom to see baby pink flowers poking out from underneath the spider plant. "She will send you signs," my best friend told me the day Mum died. "Make sure you honor them." Dad, who is downsizing, wants me to inherit the now massive cactus plant I gave Mum all those years ago. I've decided to place it next to the bits of her still blooming. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rianne. That was amazing. And thanks to all our readers, Tricia, Rianne, Tanya, and Ian. It was really wonderful. Thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. Thanks to the folks joining us online. Thanks to Shelf Life for hosting us again. And we hope to see you back in November, whatever date I said. I don't know what I said. November 21st for our next reading here. And you can find us online. And have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you.